Is this thing working? What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic start to your week. It is hot, it is humid, it is muggy, density altitude is swamp. Yeah, that's right. It's that time of year where nobody's running any decent times, at least nothing really worth writing home about. So, naturally, last weekend we took the opportunity to take the cars down to the drag strip and have a bit of a fun evening. Dr. Differential's in the house saying, oh shit, double killer tonight. Absolutely. Talking about that DA. Speed Freak 93, what up, B? Sorry to hear about the Jeep. Really sucks. Yeah, it really sucks. Still think digging pizza glass out of my hand. Tell you what, those little bastard glass pixies, you know, you're in there working on the thing. And by the way, for those of y'all that don't know, my wife's Jeep got busted into, not at the house or anything like that. She was off campus doing her thing, and some asshat decided he was going to bust into the Jeep. Had to be some dumbass kid, certainly not a professional, because any professional, well, they wouldn't have done what they did, albeit, you know, still a thief in my book. But damn, if you're going to do work, do it right. Don't be sloppy about it. Fuck's sake. Anyway, getting back to it. Yep, did the side glass window on my wife's Jeep. Did a little bit of a pictorial on that on my Instagram. Basically, it's 3 pictures. One with a bucket full of glass. The second is me about halfway through the project, and the last shot was, well, the completed and finished result. So, but yeah, getting back to it, we decided to take the cars to the drag strip for a little impromptu, although not really impromptu, testing of those TBA pulleys. Were they going to be of any benefit on the drag strip? Didn't have a dyno to throw the car on, but we do have this little thing called a drag strip, and it's located in the real world, and real world results are really what we were looking for. That combined with the 185-degree thermostat, because any cooler than that, it pisses off the ECU and a Hellcat, and we had ourselves a makings for a pretty sweet. We did have a bit of a control in that. Robert, you've seen the videos, the guy that I'm racing also installed the TBA pulleys on his tuned Hellcat, and he was still running his 185 thermostat. So we want to do a little bit of a, kind of a double hitter test for you guys. And that was, will the pulleys actually get you any ET, basically taking 4 pounds of reciprocating mass off the front of your engine? Will that help? And also, will 185-degree thermostat do you any good? Well, the results were pretty much conclusive by the end of the night. Let's make sure we haven't missed anybody. Mike Colio in the house saying Professor makes a class in session. I like it. 707 Currency saying both my 707 brothers went live today. That's right, brother. Sam Grable saying, man, just bought a tractor. I like it. Was in pristine shape. Now the seal is leaking. Now that always sucks. Dr. Div saying, glad your track night was better than mine. Huh. Didn't suck. Sorry, yours sucked, man. That sucks. Johnny saying, hi, B. I could have raced last Friday, but 3,000-foot DA is a no-go for me. That probably would have cost me 50 horsepower, at least. Yeah, absolutely, at least, because you lose 3% for every 1,000 feet above sea level you go, and you pick up 3% for every 1,000 feet you are below. So, getting back to it, what were the results? Well, my car throughout the course of the night, and this is actually kind of funny, but science, right? I mean, this is what we're here to do. Learn a little bit, experiment a little bit, see what actually gives real world, realistic gains. My car on average picked up right at 300 to 400 all night long. Let's call it 400s just for the sake of argument. Robert's car picked up a solid and consistent 400s all night long. You might say, well, why would one car pick consistently a little bit more than the other? And that has to do with the fact that his car is tuned. He is spinning his car up to spool the thing to a higher RPM. It's just the way physics works. In this case, he was able to save, or let me rephrase this, he was able to pick up a shade more because of the weight savings that we were both enjoying, and he was turning his car, like I say, higher than mine. Not giving away anything about his tune, but it is a little bit higher. But is 300ths of a second worth it, or 400ths of a second worth it? Well, here's the thing. In a world where, you're measuring and chasing tenths of a second, anything you can do to gather up anything close to a tenth of a second is kind of a gain. And although I hate to say it, oh, by the way, the density altitude was slightly worse last weekend than it was the time before we had gone. Typically, the DA will get a little bit better as the night goes on because temperatures drop. And the problem that we ran into is we started the night at 2,200 feet and we ended the night at 2,200 feet. Based on every single one of my time slips which were, this is so funny, 1073 literally the entire night. It went a 1072 with an 8 or a 9, and it went a 1074 after basically hot lapping the car. There's your result. Now, the time before, in slightly lower density altitude, and again, this is really grasping at straws, guys, but in a density altitude that was around 2,100 towards the end of the night, the best that this car would do with, well, technically the car had more fuel in it last time versus the first run, best it could muster was a 1076. So that's kind of what we were basing this off of, but the reality is that 2 times before, if you're basing best for best, we're looking at about 3,500s, but the car was kind of a little bit inconsistent, but only following the density altitude, with its worst pass being a 1080. Worst pass of the night was a 1073 with an 8, I believe. So again, you start to look at, well, what's the difference? What are we talking about? Half tenths, blink of an eye. Well, yeah, but in this business that we're in, a tenth of a second, to give you guys a good understanding what a tenth of a second looks like, at about 128 miles an hour, a tenth of a second is about half a car length at least, maybe even 3/4 of a car length. It's a big difference on a drag strip, something that you might not even notice on the street, but yeah, on the drag strip, it's huge. So, is it a result? Yeah, I'll say it is a result because his car was picking up identical numbers to mine. Now, the argument now would be, well, what about that 185-degree thermostat? What kind of gain did you see there? Nothing. The reason why is because typically when I make a pass, the car's already been cooled off. We're in the staging lanes. I've got my taser running on the cool down feature. And when I go to do my burnout, typically my water temp is pretty much hovering around 180 degrees. It'll go as high as 205 with the stock thermostat. But with this thermostat, I think I was seeing 187 at the end of the pass. Basically, I had a whole lot of air going across that radiator, keeping things nice and cool, and the thermostat was open. Not that big of a difference, and realistically, again, not enough of a difference to really call, especially considering the fact that we were in, well, practically identical DAs, and my control, which was Robert's car, with the same 3 pulleys swapped out on it, was still trapping or averaging that 3 to 4, and actually his was deeper into that 400ths of a second. If you look at my ETs, you could make a play, or at least make an argument, if you wanted to twist around some numbers, that it was worth about half a tenth. And you know what? Fair enough if you want to call it that, because it's getting pretty close to that. But just for the sake of argument, I'm not going to say that it was worth half a tenth, but it was pretty darn close to it, which means it was a worthwhile investment. And, for $250, a little bit of skin, fair amount of blood, and, some fun, good time wrenching on the car, keeping me involved with the car, yeah, I'll say it was a fun enough and a worthwhile project. But you've got to really want that 3 to 400ths of a second, basically that half a tenth, to make this work. Now, if you're wondering, what does that equate to as far as other mods that have been done to the car? What other mods have been close to that, half tenth range? Well, with my SRT, basically running a tune and stock cats versus tune and no cats, was basically, I think, worth about half a tenth. So yeah, at least there's that to compare it to. But aside from that, there's really nothing that's going to only give you about half a tenth. At least not for a couple of $100. I mean, think of what you'll pay for a cold air intake. Think of what you'll pay for, I don't know, anything else that, a throttle body, something else that'll get you about that half of a tenth that you're looking for. How many little bits does it take a lot? Man, I don't know. But I can tell you that after you spend, I don't know, you're looking at, $1,200 to cover, a tenth and a quarter maybe with just basic bolt-ons. Doesn't sound like much, but again, the result on the drag strip is something different. It's a full car length at that point. So, I don't know. Make your own judgments, but I'll tell you, I think it was a worthwhile thing to do. Dr. Diff is saying he played hell just to get a 1240, kept pulling 6 degrees as soon as I went wide open throttle, trying to figure it out. Think there's something rubbing. Absolutely, because if it's freaking out on that level, you got one of two things going on. You got something rubbing, or you've got some incredibly sensitive knock sensors at play. Not uncommon for guys to swap knock sensors out and get a more favorable result, keeping in mind that Mopars deal with false knock and have just bitchy knock sensors all the way around. Like I say, my stock truck, when I was with a stock tune going down the street, would just inadvertently pull 3 degrees of timing for knock retard, and it's cruising down the road stock tune on 89 octane. Go figure. Donna Power saying, up late, Mr. Mason? Yeah, doing a little bit of a late show. Doc Div said, but a 1240 on 8 degrees and 2200 foot DA. That is zero timing. Demonology saying, what's up, D Mason? What's up, Demonology? Glad to see you checking in, my friend. And Shawnee's saying, your car is such a consistent rock. You should try to win some trophies with that thing. They actually are having a bracket race thing at the local. I may get involved with that. I may not. We got some things coming for the car, so it might be down for just a minute. Donald Power saying, chew some bark lately? Nah. No extracts. We just like stay up late. Shawnee's saying, I've changed my stock thermostat to a 192 on my 392. Do you think a change to a 180 is worth it? It's a fairly easy swap, as you know. My tune is for a 192 thermostat. You've already got a 192 in it. You're not going to see much of a difference at that point. If you went down a little further to like a 170 and you had the tune to cover it, you might see some difference, but realistically, no, I'd keep what you got and let it ride. Shawnee is saying a tenth of a second at 130 miles an hour is close to 20 feet. That is right. That's a whole car length. These things are 16 feet long. So, when you start to look at it, again, it's like I was saying before, I picked up, what the hell was this? Oh, it's a freaking June bug, man. These things come through and just sniper you. I keep my head on a swivel over here. Things freak you out. They sound like a freaking helicopter going by your head, too. Anyway, getting back to it, 3/100ths of a second. Think about that. That's all, let's call it half a car length just for at 130 miles an hour, which is what these things are running. That is significant, especially when you're seeing the guy and you're the one looking at him in front of you. That's when you really know it made a difference. I'll tell you this, guys. Robert's car ran 1060s. 1060s is pretty significant when you consider he was running best of 1073 the time back out before. That's why I'm trying to say that I'm trying to be a bit conservative with the gains because my car is so consistent. I could possibly make an argument that the 180 thermostat helped with some of that consistency, but the reality is that we're basing some things off of controls, and the smallest average that we could find, but was still a gain, again, was that, 300ths of a second range, or 400ths of a second range. Demonology saying, I'm trying to download a tune. I like it. I like that a lot. Oh, Dollar Power saying the bark is about cutting killer lights, reaction times. Actually, we were in 050, 030 range all night. One of the first passes, actually the one that I posted with the best race of the night with Robert and I running each other, that was the worst light of the night, and I think we were both, I was a 105 and he was a 122 or something like that. We were both making sandwiches. But for the rest of the night, it was 050, 080. It was basically O and then, random number afterwards, and you'd be right in the ballpark. Demonology, what would you drop for weight to pick up a 10th? It depends on what you've already dropped. Obviously, with the Demon, you're looking at, you've got a rear seat delete. With your setup, you've already got the lightweight wheel and tire package. At this stage of the game, you're looking at two different options. You can go with a lightweight racing seat, drop about 30 pounds right there. That coupled with, hate to say it, but it works, bumper supports. Again, you've already got the battery as well, so the only thing that's next in line would be those lightweight bumper supports. Now, I've been a big advocate of not running lightweight bumper supports because of safety concerns. These are still street cars. Something weird happens, bumper support is there to basically transfer weight through the body and back around to the back of the car. That's what they're designed to do. And without that there, you've got a completely different dynamic in the event of an accident. Nobody plans on getting into accidents. That's why they're called accidents. If they weren't accidents, they'd be called on purposes. So the whole idea of running lightweight bumper supports is a little bit, it's cringy for me. However, I will say this. It works. You're looking at a total savings of about 40 pounds, nose to tail. Couple that with a lightweight racing seat. Now you're talking about 70 total pounds, which can certainly help, not to mention the fact that you're dragging weight off the front of the car, which is going to help weight transfer. So, that's really about it. I mean, you can get a little bit more crafty, start pulling some of the sound deadening out of the car. Again, you start to work in, 10 and 15 pound increments at that point. But basically, if it ain't screwed down and it's not necessary, make sure that it's not in the car. And if you've already done some of the heavier hitting mods to the car, last thing on the list is going to be those bumper supports. Caveat emptor on that one, but I will say this, I know for a fact that they work. Just from a simple mathematics weight saving point of view. And keep in mind, the lighter your car, the less weight it takes to make a percent. That's even more important because you're going to start looking at percentages of total weight as opposed to just the weight itself. That's why in a stock car, dropping 20 pounds off of it isn't going to do you much good. But again, the more weight you take off, the bigger the percentage each pound will pick up. Shawnee, did you say you picked up 0.04 from your lightweight pulleys? That is something you can see for sure. Absolutely. And that's something that we were noticing all night long. And once again, it wasn't a fluke. Every single pass down the drag strip, 1073, 1073, 1072, and then 8 or a 9, can't remember. And again, you got to consider, by the way, you got to consider the DA here, 2200 DA. And the car in these types of DAs is just not making the power to get out of the hole. 161, 160, high 160, 60 foots all night. So again, it's not like we're talking about, just this dead ringer of a density altitude that we're working with, or just some kind of sick, delusional looking 60 foot times. We're talking about real world street type 60 foot times here. And even in those conditions, that's what we were seeing. So like I say, I'd say it's a win. And with the consistency of the car that night, it made it real easy to just go literally back to back to back to back to back to back. Made 5 passes, all within 1/10. I'm sorry, all within, yeah, really, all within less than a tenth of each other. And again, with the best pass only being different than the worst pass by just over a tenth, really. So yeah, just everything was just barely over a tenth, and that was on a hot lap pass too. So I'd say it's a result. Shawnee is saying, with a Challenger, it probably takes over 100 pounds to lose a tenth of a second. Probably depends on power to weight ratio as well. Absolutely it does. And again, every pound helps. Every pound counts. And the more weight you take off, the more each pound does count. So at least you got that working for you. And realistically, you know, I've been able to pull 45 pounds out of the car with a rear seat delete, talking 80 odd pounds with the wheel and tire package. You know, another 20 something pounds with the battery. So there's just those weight savings alone. Then if you decide you want to pull the speaker box, which is 14 pounds, the tray cover, which is 12, it all starts to add up. Next thing you know, you're looking at a number. Now you've got 150, 180 pounds out of the car. That's a real weight savings. So, and you know, the drive shaft's a little bit lighter, but you know, whatever with that. The main thing is that we're seeing some results here, and realistically, weight savings, especially when we're talking about weight savings of reciprocating mass, that's really where you're going to see the difference somewhat become multiplied, because it does take torque to accelerate that mass rotationally, as well as moving the car around. Demonology is asking, will you lose your airbags by replacing the seat? No, you won't. Not at all. They still have, I believe you can transfer all your provisions over for those seats. I think a lot of the guys were running Kirkies. What the hell were they running? Anyway, I can't remember off the top of my head, but you can save about 30-ish pounds by doing that. You will have to have the rails and spacers made for them, I believe, as well. Not too many guys have done it. I've only seen a couple that were done that way. Edwards asking, what mods will void warranty? Suspension, muffler delete. Muffler delete, no, not necessarily. Don't believe that's going to hurt you. Suspension can do some damage to a warranty. It all depends on, it's basically your warranty is at the discretion of your dealership. I hate to say this, but it depends on what goes wrong as opposed to whether or not they will void a warranty. So let's say you've got a tune on the car, you've got rear diff brakes, you've got a drive shaft, you've got muffler deletes, you're running on a drag pack, the whole bit, and your throttle body fails. Well, that could be due to the tune, or it could be due to a bad throttle body. However, if there's a recall involved, recalls are separate from warranty, and that would be taken care of separate from the actual warranty itself. But paint, you know, bumper to bumper type stuff, that won't be affected. So I guess the real question here is what voids powertrain warranty? That's the thing that costs you the coin, right? Pretty much anything you do to the car, tune, headers, exhaust, depending on the dealership, they can come back and say, well, that voids your powertrain warranty, and if you want to fight it, you can, but typically it's not worth it. You're going to spend more money, way more money fighting it than you would just getting the thing fixed. One thing that will absolutely screw your warranty, drive shaft. Damn right, it'll kill your rear diff warranty if you swap a drive shaft in there. So there's a bunch of little caveats that come into play. When in doubt, just don't do the mods. The good thing about Mopars, they come pretty well sorted from the factory. That is, unless you got a 5.7, and then that's just, you know, mods waiting to happen. But the reality is that 6.4s and Hellcats come pretty darn well set up from the factory, and any real series of mods that you do to the car is, well, depending on how deep that you get into it, you're going to see some benefits, you're going to see some gains, but, you know, throw a stick to your tire on the thing, and if something goes snap, throw your stock tires back on it and drag it up there. Shawnee is asking, with 2,200 foot DA, 160, 60 foot, time is fairly decent for your car, isn't it? Yeah. I'd say, yeah, it's actually really good because the way you figure it, I'm down, you know, if you're just to do a DA correction, I'm down about 6% in power. That's about 42 horsepower. And if you look at the DA that the cars run, 1040s in, then you're looking at the fab down probably another 25 horsepower on top of that. So yeah, the car is doing really well, all things considered. The conditions, the track prep has been fantastic, but you know, when you're running in super thick, high grain, water grain air, there's only so much you can do and only so much you can get away with. We're all running in the same conditions, but if you're looking for a time slip that'll make you smile, well, you got to take the conditions into consideration or else you're going to be disappointed. Dr. Div's saying 1.6 is great. In my opinion, I would agree with that. On a 2200, yeah, on a 2200 for sure. Dr. Div's saying, hell, I haven't even pulled my spare tire off when I'm at the track. Typically, even have the babysit. Figured it was funny when I go in at full weight. Absolutely it is. Speed Freak's asking, hey Brian, on the wide body Hellcats, do they fit a wider rear tire better than a standard body Hellcat Challenger? Yes, they do. Absolutely they do. 17 by 11 looks real nice tucked underneath that wide body. Whereas you ain't going to get any more than a 10.5 underneath these things, these Challengers. Not without some surgery. I did a video talking about some things you can do a little bit different to that inner fender well to get you a little bit more room, but man, there's only so much that you can do before just the physical limitations of that wheel well start to come into play. Edward's asking, what warranty should I purchase, if any? None. Any issues to note with a 2015? No, not really any real issues with the 2015. If we're talking about Hellcats, you've got the bearings in the snout to worry about. Every once in a while, you'll hear about a fuel pressure sensor that goes out, which requires basically buying a driver's side fuel rail because that sensor is integrated into the fuel line. Now, aside from that, no. 15s, whether it's a 392 car or a Hellcat, all solid. Most of the guys that have those cars, no real issues whatsoever. As a matter of fact, by the time you get your hands on it, chances are it's going to have gone through all of the issues that it would have gone through. Hellcats are a bit more durable in that respect. There could be some potential issues with lifters on the 6.4s for 15, but just don't see them very often. So I think you're in good shape. Shawnee is saying, I'm running an aluminum drive shaft, BMR lower control arms, nice, and a diff brace. I would expect that some of my driveline warranty would be effective, not everything, of course. Yeah, just basically anything aft of that transmission. You're not going to get any, you're not going to get your half shafts warranted, diff warranted. Obviously, the drive shaft won't be warranted because I don't warrant it. I think everything forward from that should be good, but it would just depend on what exactly was or had gone wrong and how badly it went wrong when it did. So take that with a grain of salt. Again, always consult your favorite service manager. Try to be chummy with those guys. Bring them donuts or whatever the case might be. You want to be good friends with those guys. Sometimes they can help you out. They can get you in and out of there. Other times, their hands are tied as well. So, Shawnee's saying, I have a tune and long tube headers. My warranty is definitely a question. Yeah, it is. I tell you something. I would say you're probably screwed on that level. But the good news is that typically major stuff just doesn't really go wrong with these cars too often if it's done right tune-wise. Dr. Div saying, lost the feed. Now we got the feedback. All right. Getting back to Dr. Div saying the rain killer DA, I pulled into the lanes and it started raining. Was short and they dried the track, but it took him a while to get the truck ready. Slipped the torque converter and it didn't slip the 1-2 shift. Oh, it stayed unlocked. Okay, good deal. Joe Donkey saying, love the shirt. Where did you get that? Can't wait for that movie. Oh, yeah, Rob Zombie, 3 from Hell's coming out. Be on the lookout for that. It's got this at a concert. This was when they did the reveal for the 3 from Hell. They did this is back, God, man, this has been months ago. But they did part of the trailer reveal and all that other kind of good stuff. This is the film crew 3 from Hell shirt. So that's got it. Cooling tips between passes. I pop ahead and turn the heater on. Am I wasting my time or just run it? Can you talk about how much heat soak sucks power? You will be Mason's got the 2 fists. I like it. Shades on. Yeah, I can, as a matter of fact. So no, you're definitely not wasting your time. Get that hood up. Get the heater going full blast. That can help you, but best trick in the world is get you a taser, man. I hate to say it, but the ability to run your fans while the car's sitting makes a big difference. As far as how much power does heat drag out of the car, I'll tell you this: if you are on a dyno and you go back to back to back passes, and you start off at a water temperature around 175 to 180 degrees, with oil temperature roughly the same, that on a Hellcat, stock Hellcat, that run versus a heat-soaked pass can be worth as much as 30 horsepower. So definitely worth the time and the effort to cool it off. I don't recommend throwing ice on top of the supercharger though. It's fine for naturally aspirated stuff, don't sweat that. But two things, well, yes and no on that. It depends on the polymer and all this other stuff. But I don't want to water this down too much. But I don't like throwing ice on superchargers necessarily. It's not going to hurt anything, especially if you're just trying to cool the thing down for dyno passes, testing, things like that. But you got to remember that those cases are torqued to the heads, and it's metal. So when you throw ice or anything else on there, you want the temperature on that case to be uniform, and when part of it is cooler, it contracts more. You've got very tight tolerances with your rotors, and the rotors have expanded because of heat, but the case is shrinking because you've got ice. Back in the day, there were some issues with guys that would just stack ice on top of their blowers, and some of them ended up having problems with rotors actually hitting the case. So you don't see that with just a bag of ice, and don't sweat that, but just some things to consider. But I will say this, yeah, you can see as much as 30 horsepower on naturally aspirated cars with aluminum intake manifolds like the 6.1 or the Edelbrock. No kidding, guys, 20 horsepower I've seen get sapped out of one of those things. In fact, we did a test with the Edelbrock intake manifold on a 426 stroker with a fairly mild cam. I think the car put down 450 to the rear wheels, again on a Mustang dyno. Iced the thing down, and it turned around and dropped 472 or 475, something along those lines. So in that case, 20 to 25 horsepower. Show Me Mopar saying, I thinks I missed his first comment. Did I? Let's see if I did. Where is it? Where did it go? Well, post it up again. Maybe I did miss it. But I don't see where I did. Shawnee's saying, Show Me Mopar, with my 392, I pulled off my shaker and half covers, and I iced the upper intake and air filter area, and I started a little bit, then I checked my oil temp and engine temperature. That's right. Yeah, don't necessarily get out there and run the car with ice cold oil temps. You don't want to be spiking that oil pressure. And Show Me, yeah, man, if I missed it, throw one back up there, man. I don't like missing comments, so if I did, I apologize for that. Shawnee's saying, I usually let it sit for about a half an hour to an hour, but I'm always trying to get a specific number. Oh, but I'm so obsessive. Yeah, I do the same thing, man. Look, we typically, I'll get this thing down to about 165 degrees. And then I shut down all the cooling, just leave the hood up, and from there it's just that usually takes about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes at the most, and then I'll just run over into the staging lanes and just monitor temperature at that point. But I typically will not go into the burnout box. I will say this: I typically will not go into the burnout box any less than about 165 degrees running. Typically by the time I'm done with the burnout, I'll be sitting right at 180 degrees, whether I have the stock thermostat or not. Horse saying I lose about 3/10 on hot laps. That's a lot to lose on a hot lap. But I can definitely see it depending on the type of car it is. Dr. Div saying picked up 22 horsepower and letting mine cool down, went on nitrous some time ago, and yes, ice is a bad idea. Maybe on an intercooler with a fan blowing through it or the radiator, but not on the blower. Absolutely. Horde saying pulled my first 12.9 pass. Very nice. Full interior SRT 392, 6,200 foot density altitude. Good Lord, that's up there. True 5,000 foot elevation track. That is awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that. Guys, that is a screaming ET for that type of an elevation. That 12s is screaming fast. Anything naturally aspirated that can run that good up there is really running strong. Let's see. Car is dying for oxygen. Yeah, that thing's gasping for air. So anyway, guys, getting back to it, the pulleys looks like they worked out pretty well, so can't really complain too much about that. And next for the car, what's next for this contraption? Well, I think we've done the stock tune thing long enough. I like the idea of getting out there and having fun with this thing with the stock tune, but it's just not in my nature to really leave anything that stock for that long. And so probably going to start tuning on this thing a little bit, going to give it a little bit of a transmission tune and a little bit of an engine tune to go along with it. Nothing too major. What I'm basically going to be doing is I'm going to, what's the best way I can put this? I'm going to put the tune basically where I think it should have come from the factory. That's going to be RPM at shift points. Going to play around with the transmission tune because I love doing that. And there's going to be some parameters I'm going to change in the tune that I think are a little bit over nanny-ish, to say the least. From there, we're going to take it to the drag strip and see if my handiwork is worth anything. But I think it'll do pretty well. And if experience has taught me anything, I can probably drag a couple of tenths out of this car without having to mess with it too much. And we'll see what ends up happening. At least I can probably drag a tenth out of it just with the transmission tune alone. Probably a little bit more than that. But we shall see. TU saying, "Sub B, I don't think I've heard your thoughts on the upcoming C8 yet. It's going to be unveiled 7/18/19. What are your predictions on what power plant, transmission, curb weight, etc. will be?" Well. I am still a closeted Corvette fan, always will be, and the power plant so far have been looking like this. LT1 has been thrown around with a 4-valve variant as an upgrade, along with some supercharged variant of one or the other. So that's what we're looking at. Now, in terms of curb weight, things like that, don't expect this thing to weigh, 3,200 pounds. This thing's still going to be a fairly, I'm not going to say heavy car, but it's probably still going to be around 3,600 pounds. And those are the things that I've heard of so far. I know a couple of guys that are on the waiting list for that car, and I'm hoping to be able to get my hands on one as soon as they drop. But in terms of transmission, I don't think they're going to go too far away from where they are now. Hopefully they're not going to go with the freaking DSG style transmission, but I don't know of anything on that yet. My understanding is that it's still going to be some, either ZF transaxle or Tremec will come up with something to make GM happy. That has yet to be seen. However, the balance of that equation is I'm definitely looking forward to that car. I think it's a long time coming. They should have done it a long time ago. And I think that it's going to do great for the brand of Corvette in general. The Corvette, to be honest with you guys, has kind of gotten a little bit stale. People have seen the same Corvette for a while now. Front engine, rear drive. And does it have a supercharger? Yes, then it's this. Is it fast? Yeah, okay, fine. But the reality is that you're still dealing with a car that is, an American icon, and Zora wanted that thing to be mid-engined a long time ago, and again, I still think they should have given him what he wanted at the time, but the market just wouldn't bear it. Now it will, and you're looking at a car that's going to be real special, and I cannot wait to see that thing come around. Dr. Div is asking, do the Hellcats have VVT? Yes, they do. Show Mopar saying, thanks, Shawnee. All good stuff. I like it. Shawnee's asking, are you trying to see how far you can go with stock boost and stock cats with some minor tweaks? Is there a little room to help with cat over temp? Is the stock tune way too rich on the high end? Actually, funny, the first part of that is, you see how far you can go with stock boost, stock cats with minor tweaks? Yes. In fact, everything that I do to this car for now is going to be with stock catalytic converters on stock boost. I don't see any real reason for me personally, to start throwing a ton of boost at this thing because, well, I know what ends up happening there. And I subscribe to a very strict set of rules when it comes to Hellcats, mainly because I've been around these things for a long time. I've been around the tuning side of these things for a long time. That coupled with the fact that I live in Houston, Texas, which, here comes Moparmageddon every year. And if you go even slightly aggressive with these things and you start running into these crazy negative 1,500 DAs that we get down here, you could potentially be looking at a blown up Hellcat. Don't really want that. So because of my altitude and where I live, I'm a little bit limited as far as how aggressive I can get with the car and still feel safe about playing around with the thing all the time on regular old pump gasoline. So yeah, minor tweaks, which I feel like are going to prove to be a benefit, is what we're looking for with the car. Keeping it green, keeping it friendly, keeping it all of that nonsense, but yet still try to get the most out of it that you can. I'm not chasing nines. I'm not chasing a particular number. We're just seeing what we can get away with given what we got. As far as, is there a little room to help cover cat over temp? Yes, there is, but only to a point. You got to remember that I can play with that figure, but all I'm doing is buying myself a little bit of time for that thing to go into cat over temp. Once it goes into cat over temp, it's still going to go fat, and it's going to go fat to try to save the catalytic converters. If I kill catalytic converter over temp protection altogether with the car, I'm not going to destroy the catalytic converter straight away, but they will be in danger of being blown out of the freaking exhaust or melted, and I don't want to do that to an expensive component. So I will still leave catalytic converter over temp in play. Will I tweak it a little bit? I might see what I can get away with. I know the temperatures that I know that I can get away with, so there's that. But I can also tweak fueling a little bit on the big end, because the question of, is the stock tune way too rich on the high end? Actually, no. You can make a case that the Hellcat is way too lean, period. You got to remember that the command AFR on a Hellcat is typically around 12.7, which looks a lot like an AFR. But when it goes into cat over temp, you're looking at, AFRs closer to like 10.8, 10.9, which isn't necessarily bad, and it also doesn't mess with any timing. So again, Is it overly rich? Only when it goes into cat overtemp, which is towards the end of the pass. So far as I can tell, though, it really doesn't make that much of a difference in terms of actual power production. It just doesn't. Mile an hour has been showing that. So, lining the car up with cars that have been tuned with no cats and no cat overtemp has not yielded a significant difference in mile per hour on the big end versus where I am now. So it begs the question, at this power level, at this boost level, is it even worth it to fool with that? And the answer to that is no, because consistently, with a lot of track time and a lot of research and development going into just looking at time slips, you'll notice straight away that cars without cat overtemp protection just simply weren't going any quicker than my stock car. So there you have it. But there are some minor tweaks that you can make that have nothing, by the way, to do with timing, that you can pick up a little bit with these cars. Shawnee's saying, anytime, show me Mopar. TU's asking, speaking of cats, would you rather cat delete Revlon or gut the cats? If I were to do anything with mine, I would cat delete the car because, well, the cat pipes are expensive. And, for $400, you can get a set of cat delete pipes. I think JBA makes a set, still has that nice thick flange, and just go that direction. When it comes time to delete the cats on the car, that's really going to be a bit of a turning point for it. But for now, we're just going to let it rock and keep rocking those stock cats. Besides, with the Hellcat stock exhaust, it gets rowdy with no catalytic converters. Dr. Div saying, shoot me the file and let me do my VVT adjustment. I assure you it'll be worth it 100% and we'll definitely be able to spin higher. Higher RPM is horsepower. Do it 100% of Hemi tunes. Trust me on this. I'll hit you up. But I'm pretty good with those myself. Horde Relation saying, is time slip per dollar worth upgrading the drive shaft to aluminum into 392s? No, it's not. No, it's not, but I will say this. One thing to look out for if you're taking the car to the track regularly is your carrier bearing. Make sure you're not getting too much movement in that carrier bearing over time. It might be worth it to swap the drive shaft just to have a bit more of a robust unit back there. Just keep in mind though, with the 392, you've got a different exhaust system than the Hellcats, and you may run into some clearance issues. But I'll just say this: don't worry about a drive shaft for that car for now, because I don't think you're going to see any real gain out of it. Shawnee's asking, can you go more boost and then if the DA gets low, pull timing on a given day? Not a good idea. Problem is what DA are you going to start to pull timing at? The other thing is that it's not always timing related. Yeah, timing does play a specific role in that, but fueling has an issue there as well. And fuel quality is the other thing that has potentially or can potentially be an issue in lower DAs. That's why I always advocate lower DAs. Guys, if you're running one of the supercharged cars, NA, you don't really need to worry about this too much, but the guys with the supercharged cars, if you're going to be beating on the car and you know you're going to be dealing with some pretty serious negative density altitude conditions, throw a little bit of race gas in the thing, throw a little butane in it, whatever. Give it a little bit of a cushion there. Again, just my advice, do with it what you will, but I've seen guys with, and this typically happens with not to, I almost don't even want to say this, but on email tunes. A lot of times those are the tunes that end up going south. Down here, if somebody's going off of a base tune that works in say 1,000-foot DAs and it seems to be flawless up there, the guy's done 20, 30 cars. Those cars come down here and then I don't know, bad things happen. So low DAs, anything under, basically anything under 0, start looking to throw a little race gas or boost in the mix. But typically, to answer the question, it's more fuel quality than timing. Shawnee's hollering out the Hortolation saying, I went with an aluminum drive shaft and diff brace on my 392 because I have a manual transmission. I'm launching a heavy car at 5,000 to 6,000 RPM. It's for durability. Absolutely. Dr. Diff is asking, what is that temp on the converters? Well, stock temperature is 1700 and change. And it just depends on what my mood is as opposed to what the actual temp is to keep those converters safe. I'll typically hover, 150 to 200 degrees above that, but I don't go over 1950 typically. Horde Relations, I have the diff brace and lower trailing arms. Thanks to B. Mason, been wondering for so long if it's worth it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, diff brace and lower trailing arms. Actually, I'm surprised. I need to get around and doing it with all the other silly things I'm doing in my car, but just haven't put the BMRs on this one yet. Shawnee's saying, I never ran more lean than 11.8 with my Terminator. I can't believe Hellcat's AFR is in the 12s. Yeah, no kidding. We're still trying to figure that out too. Show me Mopar. Shawnee, 5 to 6 grand launch. Wow, gnarly. Absolutely. Horde saying automatic trans. Dr. Div saying cat delete, long tubes. Actually, that's the problem with these things. Long tubes don't make any power on them. I have driven and dynoed long tubes with cat delete and stock manifolds, well, without cats, but still, 2 Bravo packages, identical, and no difference in power whatsoever. And no difference in feel and driving either. Blackbird 98's asking, have you entertained the idea of E85 for your cat? I have. So I know it's all the rage right now. Want to see your thoughts on E85 and the Hellcat engine. Thanks for all your info. B. Mason's the best. Thank you very much. I have considered E85, but the E85 conversation is kind of a long one. Matter of fact, I had this conversation earlier with a fella, and the E85 thing kind of works out like this. I am... Whoa, that was trippy. Anyway, I had a weird thing with the feed. I am really on the fence with the 85 for this car at this boost level. There is a pretty solid breakover point though. On a Mustang dyno, and this is a Mustang dyno that's a legit reading Mustang dyno, if you get, personal opinion here, over 700 horsepower to the rear wheels in a Hellcat, it has nothing to do with LS or Mustang or anything like that. We're talking about Mopars here. You get over 700, you're going to be kind of in this danger zone with 93 octane fuel. You get around 750 and you are in the range of, well, you've passed up where you should have already switched over to E85. The reason for that is the weight of the vehicle, the load of the vehicle, and the load that weight is putting on the engine. Dwell time becomes a significant issue at that point. And E85 works as a fantastic cushion. It's very forgiving. It's amazing fuel. But at this power level, I really don't feel like I need it. Now, if I were to ramp up boost a little bit, yeah, that'd be a completely different story. What the hell, man? I swear to God, I feel like a bug keeps flying up my nose. We got bugs and gnats and skeeters and freaking flies that are the size of your head. The whole thing's running around here, man. It's like a freaking entomologist's wet dream. But anyway, getting back to it, I like the 85, but my problem with the 85 is I'm just not willing to take that leap. Man, I got bills to pay too, and the idea of $1,300 for a fuel system, $800 for a set of injectors, the pulleys, putting all this stuff together and all of that, there is a garden variety 9-second package that I could put on this car, and it would be a forever package, but it would forever be on E85. So I just don't know that I'm willing to go that far with the car, because the mission statement of the car really is not to go that far. It's really to see where we can take this thing on stock boost with minimal investment and maximum return on everything that we do with the car. So hopefully that answers that question. But for now, look, I can throw, $20 worth of race gas in this thing every time I take it to the track, and it takes a long time to get to the cost of a set of fuel pumps, injectors at $20 a hit. So just another way to look at it. Dr. Div saying, cool, then we can trade info. You do yours and I'll do mine, and we can compare. I'd like to check it out. Have a fun day trying each other's tricks. And I'll make a video on it. And we'll talk about that. Kira's saying, hey B, did you know Edelbrock has an intake manifold for the Gen 3 Hemis called the Victor 2? Yes, I've done videos on it. Several of them. And it's fun to talk about that intake, because it sucks. Shawnee's saying, I have fairly good sticky tires, so if I don't give it hell off the line, it will actually bog. I admit a 392 and 6-speed is not an ideal drag car, so I'm still learning what it likes. Absolutely. It takes a while to get those things sorted too. Racer X saying, what's up, man? What's happening? What's up, man? Got the thumbs up. TU, will you use the same BMRs that were on your SRT 392? Yes, I will. And those are the same ones we put on the Demon as well, and it worked great. Mopar Man saying, hey, B Mason. Hey, Mopar Man. Racer X, what would you recommend, a Gallo 12 or a Gallo 24 motor? Well, 24 is bigger than 12, isn't it? And bigger is always better. Ergo, a 24. Shawnee, hi Racer X, how's the shaker running? We know that thing's running good. T saying, Racer X in the building with the fist bump. Saying, love your channel, man. Racer X hollering back. Shawnee saying, hi Mopar Man 446. I like it. White Knuckle RT, what up, B? High five. Shh, got your high five. I like it. Mopar Man saying, got a little Racer X and now B Mason in the same night. Life is Mopar. I appreciate that. Hang on a second. Oh, Mopar Man, thank you very much. A $30 contribution to the cause, man. I truly appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. Saying, what up, B? How's life? Hope good, my friend. Some Revlon Cash and Diet Coke fun, man. I love it. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated, man. Can't do it without supporters like you, and I truly humbly thank you for that. Let's see. Went a little bit too far. Let's see. Dr. Div saying 85 is very forgiving at 0.84 Lambda for sure. Absolutely. Picked up time moving it to 0.80 and 0.78. I've always liked 080 for E85. Don't like going super nuts on lean mixtures with E85 because, again, fuel quality. Now, if you're running Excite, any of the name brand E85s, the ethanol that's cut with a higher quality gasoline, then yeah, you might be able to get away with a little bit better, like in the 84, 85 range, really, on Lambda. But realistically, if you're running on good old-fashioned Sunoco, you're going to want to err on the side of caution with it. But the good thing is that there's a very strong cushion there no matter which direction you go with that. And by the way, for you guys, what we're talking about, Lambda is a percentage of stoichiometric value. It's a tuning term where you hear guys saying, I run 11.8 or 11.7. That means 11.8 or 11.7. We're talking parts of air per part of fuel. The lower the number, the lower the amount of air per part of fuel. And so stoichiometric it varies from fuel to fuel to fuel, but all gauges read in lambda, and therefore when we're talking about numbers and things like that, it is a percentage of a stoichiometric value. Gasoline, by the way, is 14.7. Mopar man saying, what up, Sean? Good to see you. I like it. Michael John saying, going for the best bang for the buck. I like it. Yeah, that's kind of, man, my thing is this, man. I'm doing all this stuff on a budget, and, you know, a lot of the guys that are buying these cars, you know, you want to be able to give the best step-by-step result of whatever mods that you're doing to the car. And that's why, you know, when I first got the car, we got it at a good point in time during the year. We were able to start chasing down that record. Looks like we're able to get it as deep as third. So that's pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with that. And the reason why I say that, and the reason why I'm not going to be chasing the stock record anymore, is because the stock record, the more you look into it, the more convoluted that it starts to get. And, you know, who pulled out their seats, you know, what was the DA, you know, there's no DA correction, there's none of that action involved. And the problem with all of that is that guys that live in higher DA areas can't play in that game. And that sucks, man. I want everybody to be able to be competitive with this, not just me or guys that are, you know, here at sea level or close to sea level. And, you know, it's cool to say that, you know, for all intents and purposes, you know, that 1047, you know, again, I haven't seen anything quicker than that, you know, so I've got to assume that, you know, as far as the cars that were either taking part in it or posting up numbers or whatever, yeah, okay, so third, great. But again, the means to that end start to get a bit suspect. You start getting into some pretty serious weight reduction. Guys, it's funny when, you know, some record is on the line, how much bending of the rules or just outright cheating that you start to find. And you know what? I proved my point, and I proved it in a funny way because I did it on Bucky's 93 octane gas. Car wasn't even clean. Did it with a nasty headwind and some sick DA on a heavy ass set of race stars. Suck it. It ran a 1047. Play with it a little bit. God dang, man. Freaking. Oh, White Knuckles saying, hollering out at Racer X saying, what up, Racer X? How's it going, dude? I see Miss X make some progress in ETs. Right on. I like it. And again, Mopar man, thank you so very much for that contribution. Do appreciate it. Bradley Ramirez saying, hey, Sean, I asked the last live about headers and ended up getting Cook's long tubes. Thanks for the recommendation. And I also wanted to ask, do I have to tune the car? I have a 6.4 Scat Pack. Yes, you do. The reason why is first and foremost, there's a pulse timing that the ECU is looking for from when that thing fires to when it sees a signal at the oxygen sensor. If that timing is off, then your fueling can be off, and it's going to think that it's doing the right thing. It just doesn't know that it's doing the wrong thing for your fueling. And again, it's pulse timing. That's got to be fixed. And some potential variations with the actual, you know, air fuel ratios, things like that, timing to take the most advantage of it. But yes, the short answer is you will need a tune. Y'all hang on just 1 second. Time out. Time out. Hold the phone. Time out. Everybody hang on. Time out. Be right back. Hang on. All right, we're back. Coming back. All right, so Racer X say, Mopar man coming up big night with the fist bumps. On fire. I like it. Yes, thank you very much. Mopar man saying, very welcome, my friend. Thank you again very much. Shawnee saying, Bradley, I have long tubes and high flow cats. Eventually the computer will not like the different placement of the O2 sensors. Yeah, it does kind of piss it off a little bit. and it can have a tendency to run a little bit on the lean side typically. Shawnee's saying, I ran the stock tune with the long tubes for a little while, a bit better throttle response, only a small amount of horsepower on the dyno, maybe 3. Definitely put a tune on there. You know, I'll say this, you know, the good thing about long tubes is that you do get a little bit better throttle response, better torque under the curve, especially under partial throttle. So, you know, for the guys that have asked about the long tubes on these cars, and I'm constantly saying, you know, it's not worth it in terms of actual power production, but on the street, they do make a difference. And, you know, every car that I've ever driven with long tubes, even with the stock cam, has felt pretty darn good on the street. So in that respect, I say it's absolutely worth it. Let's see, Mopar Man saying, racer for you too and your channels. Only way to go as far as I'm concerned. Man, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Shawnee's saying, I'm running 464 horsepower at the wheels on a dyno jet. Long tube headers, high flow cats, underdrive pulleys, Hemi Fever tuning. Fastman throttle body, cleaned up intake. That's a good number. Shawnee's saying, Racer X, I'd love to see your shaker in the quarter mile. Decent air with a tire to see if you can run an 11. It will run an 11 on a decent tire in real good DA. Mopar Man's asking Sean, have you got that scat pack in the 11s yet? I know you will get there. You drive too good and the car is great. If not, now in the fall. Oh, you'll definitely get it down there. Saying, struggling with the weather. I was supposed to race last Friday, but the DA was 3,000 feet. That definitely won't run an 11. He says, I can't run an 11 until I get 1,500 feet or less air. Absolutely. Racer X, again, Mopar Man, you got the fist bump. I like it. Mopar Man saying, that's what I was afraid of. No worries, my friend. You, in the fall, will get 11s. I like it. Yep, Racer X saying, absolutely, Sean, the car should run great and good air on the right tires. It absolutely will. Then Mopar Man's Racer X got the 2 fist bumps, got the flex and the piece. I like it. Mopar Man saying, I see him in October in the 11H or so. I tell you what, we get some good air. It certainly will. Dr. Div saying, Mrs. Mason must have wanted a kiss goodnight. I already took care of that, big boy. Let's see. White Knuckle RT, long tubes, no cats here, but added a wideband because of replacement relocation of the stock O2s. Very nice. Yeah, so guys, that's one of the things that you know, if you're asking, you know, one of the funny things that I'll get asked is, you know, what is the most asked question on the live show? And it's always about long tubes. And it's typically what kind of gains do you get, and you know, I always try to, you know, let folks know that, you know, there is a benefit to long tubes. It's just not what you think. And again, it has all, you know, it's all to do with the load profile of the camshaft. Very aggressive load, high lift with no duration to speak of. Little wonder why lifters keep going bad in some of these Hemis. What they're having to deal with, I mean, that really would have been a, you know, a solid lifter profile back in the day. Let's see, Crazy Josh saying, if you guys are going to do headers, do long tubes. I did shorty headers and I wish I had gone with long tubes. Yeah, you know, the funny thing, okay, I'll speak on that too. We put a set of BBKs on Chris's 392, and it actually picked up power. Put the 1 7/8 inch shorties. The only downside to that header was just fit, man. It was just close to stuff it shouldn't have been close to, but in terms of actually making power, they actually made a little bit of power, so can't really say that it was bad. I think JBA may have just released a set of 1 7/8 inch shorties as well, basically direct replacements for the stock manifolds that come on the Hellcats, which are 1 3/4 inch shorties. So yeah, there might be some gains there, mainly because, you know, the longer the tube, you're dealing with pulse timing. And the longer that pulse is in a tube, the more of a restriction, so to speak, the more pressure there is in front of that pulse. It's going to slow it down. That's why you have a collector. When that pulse slows down real fast, creates a vacuum. It's really not a vacuum, it's a negative pressure delta, which helps to draw that following pulse out of that same primary tube. Well, with the shorter the pull, or the shorter the distance, the less of a diameter that you have to have, basically, because you don't have the restriction of the length of the primary tube. It's why 1 3/4 inch works just fine on, or 1 5/8, I should say, works just fine. No, I'm sorry, 1 3/4. It's getting late. Works fine on the Hellcat at that power level. Not to mention the fact you've got a compressor cramming air into it. Let's see. Dr. Bill saying, time for me to catch out. Also, talk to you soon, sir. Always love your advice. Thank you. Talk to you later. I'm serious about the cam timing adjustment. It will be fun. Good night, brother. We will see you later, my friend. Yeah, we will chat about that. There's a big difference between the Hellcats and the NA stuff, for sure. Shiny saying, good night, Dr. Div. Michael John saying, do you know of a good website to see current DA across the nation? Air Density Online is real good to be able to check in with what everybody else is working with. That is Air Density Online. Shiny is saying, oh, there he is. Shany's saying Air Density Online. You'll have to import a certain track. That should give you a good idea. That is correct. Michael John saying, I'm in Tennessee and think it ranges between 2,000 and 2,500 on average, but not sure. Sounds about right for Tennessee. I think your base elevation is going to be probably somewhere around 750 feet, so it makes sense. Onyx Ram saying, good night. At work when I can go to Mopar class with the professor, man. I appreciate that. I enjoy hanging out with you. So yeah, it's one of those things where, every little bit that you can do with these things does actually help quite a bit as far as getting the most out of these cars. And to be honest with you, it's hard to say which modification is best, especially when you start getting into the naturally aspirated cars, because so much goes into that well-rounded performance. And when you take the package in its whole, when you take a look at the the weight of the car, the gearing of the car, the power production of the engine, and the gearing of the transmission and everything else, it looks like on paper that throwing a set of long tubes on it would be great. And if you look at the cam specs of the engine without looking at the cam as a whole, you go, oh man, if I put long tubes on this thing, I'm definitely going to pick up some horsepower. The reality to that is that you don't, because that lobe separation angle is so wide and there's so very little duration in there to play with. Just a little bit more duration would really help the car out in terms of making long tubes work. But the reality is that that's not what you got to work with. And so therefore, the power production that it's going to pick up is only going to be in RPM ranges where there's enough physical time for there to be some solid level of scavenging. And in this case, it's all down low. You get into piston speed, port velocity, and everything else that comes into it. But that's kind of the bottom line with that. Shawnee saying, I paid $1,600 for long tube headers and high flow cats and another $300 to install, and it made 3 horsepower on a dyno and 3 torque with a stock tune at about 1 mile an hour. Hang on a second. And 1/10 in the quarter. Saying, not a lot of help until I upgrade my cam, but I love the sound, and with the tune I'll be making decent power, decent number now. That's actually great. That's another, listen, the long tubes sound fantastic, and if you do it only for the sound of it, ain't nothing wrong with that. You're not going to hurt performance, that's for sure. And you will pick up a little bit, again, underfoot, which, that means something. Mopar Man's saying, B. Mason, I think I have your answer to this, but what do you think about a Pentastar build? I've already built 4 this season. 3 are running Great Lakes and doing pretty well. Just can't get excited. Even when I was the one who built it. Man, I got to tell you something on the Pentastar deal. I'm having a hard time getting worked up or excited or interested in the Pentastar builds for a couple of reasons. One is, you can put together something that makes pretty decent power, something in the, let's say 400 horsepower to the rear wheels range with a Pentastar. And that's cool for a Pentastar engine, but I mean, it's not like you're putting a D1X on the thing. And, how much power can you get out of it? Well, I mean, you start throwing internals at it, camshafts and, everything else, throw, 25 to 30 pounds of boost at it. Yeah, you can make some pretty serious power, but nobody's really doing that because the cost of it is going to be astronomical, number one, and number two, you'll never see any return on that. Whereas, the V8 cars are significantly more desirable, and no matter what you do to a V6, it's still not going to make the torque, and at least not with a supercharger setup. You really need turbos to make it work right, and you're dealing with a car that's heavy where you need torque to get the thing moving. Now, if it's a V6 Mustang, that's a little bit different story because you can actually play with those things. We've seen them on our dyno make I think it was one of them made 440, 450, something like that. Fairly mild setup on a very well-built short block. So definitely considerably more in that setup. But again, we're talking about a car that's very light. So, if it's worth it to throw that kind of money at a 6-cylinder, that's going to only be worth it to somebody that is in love with 6-cylinders and wants to build a 6-cylinder hot rod, which I fully endorse. I love stuff like that. But for the Mopars, I don't know. It's tough for me to get super excited about that, mainly because I know the kind of money that's going to be involved to put into the thing to make it durable and to make it to where I would actually want to own the thing myself after it's been built. So hopefully that answers the question. No disrespect to any 6-gunner out there. I just don't. I can't get overly excited about it. But in certain circles, and in certain environments, I totally get it. And if that's what you've got to work with and your budget doesn't allow for a trade-in, but you do want to build a hot rod, that might be your only alternative. I would just say, if you've got the money to put into superchargers and an engine build on a V6, then you got the money to trade the V6 in on a car that'll beat up on that V6 and will be more desirable if you want to get rid of that car. So, I don't know. Just my 2 cents. Mopar Man saying, thank you, agree, by the way. Yeah, it's so tough. Man, I want to be on board. I want to be supportive. But at the same time, there's a certain part of me that just cannot wrap my mind around that avenue, not for this car. Other cars, yeah, I do. I don't know. I come up a little bit short. I'm one of these show me type guys when it comes to the Pentastar 6 and everything else. Yeah, sure, crank, rods, pistons, D1X fuel system, E85 cams, throw the kitchen sink at it. Let's see where the thing sticks. You're going to have to re-gear it. So, built transmission, the whole 9 yards. I think you can kind of see where I'm going with that. So, again, we're talking Mopars, not Mustangs. That's kind of where I draw the line. Crazy Joe is saying, do you think there will be a big weight reduction when Challengers and Chargers move to a new platform? Man, so far as I can tell, from what I'm hearing, you're looking at a couple of 100 pounds. Now, is that a lot of weight? Well, Yeah, it's a lot of weight. I mean, go pick up 200 pounds and see how far you can throw it. I mean, it's definitely a significant amount of weight, if nothing else. So you got that to consider. However, I will say this. I'm more interested in power plants and what they're going to use to motivate that new platform. I would love to see an upgraded, we're just talking about V6s, I would love to see an upgraded V6. I'd like to see them uncork the 5.7 a little bit. And if I'm being honest, I'd like to see them do something else with the 6.4. The 6.4 will have been with us for a long time by the time that new platform comes out. We need to see a little bit more out of Mopar with these V8s, if for no other reason than to keep up with the Joneses. Now, granted, these cars are very competitive still to this day, especially with that 8-speed automatic. Racer X did a great job of showcasing just how competitive that they can be with that new Mustang. Basically, the cars ran more or less identical ETs. However, that Mustang was reeling that Challenger in like a 2-pound trout. And that is where the difference really comes into play, is how much of a difference is a little bit better intake manifold, maybe a little bit more duration on that camshaft, leave the thing 392 cubic inches just to, have a more warrantable rod to stroke ratio. Let's see if we can take that thing from 485 to 5 1/4 or 485 to 515 legit SAE net horsepower, drop a couple of pounds, and in the process, I don't know, man, maybe give it a more proper rear gear ratio. These are the types of things that I'm going to have to see out of the new platform to actually be impressed, because without that, you're going to be hard pressed to beat the cars that are out running around now. No sense in coming out with something new if it's not marketably better, at least to some degree. A tenth or two in the quarter mile might be nice on paper. I just had a freaking June bug fly down the back of my shirt, which kind of tickles and it's kind of neat, but the thing is driving me nuts. Jesus Christ. Literally bugging me right now. Welcome to welcome to Southeast Texas in June. Shawnee's saying, I'm hoping the next generation Challenger cuts 500 pounds, so maybe that's asking too much. Yeah, God, I don't want to squish this thing because it's going to be gross. There he is. Little bastard kamikazed me. Anyway, Shawnee's saying, I'm hoping the next gen Challenger cuts 500 pounds. Maybe that's asking too much. Yeah, I think, so far as I can tell, what I've heard is 200 pounds is about what they're looking to cut with the reformatting or reconfiguring of the LX platform. Mopar Man saying, these guys are laying out some good cash for them. I've built putting 440 horsepower. It seems to be holding up, but I'm worried about it with the cash they have spent. Yeah, I mean, that's really the whole thing here is, yeah, you've thrown a lot of money at a car that, from a roll race will hang with a 392. But again, it's a lot of money. But again, if you're into 6-cylinders, and there's a lot of guys that are big into 6-cylinders, and I say, man, go for it. Fly your freak flag high, man. I love that stuff. But, instead of 440 Mopar Man, look, I got to see 650 to the rear wheels. That's what I'm looking for. I don't want to see a 6-cylinder owner throw that kind of money at one of those cars and run an 1180. I want to see one of those guys throw that kind of money at the car and run a 1080, a 1050. That's really what I'm looking to see, because, realistically, if you're not in that range after you drop that kind of coin, the durability starts coming into play and all that. I mean, it just, I don't know. It just, there's some things that I just, look at and I just go, I just can't get it. Shawnee's saying the Hemi tax is bad enough. The Pentastar tax would be worse. I think it is. and see how it couldn't be. It certainly isn't any better. Mopar Man saying, Shawnee, there is talk from reliable people talking 450 to 500 pounds. I wouldn't totally get behind it until I know more and hear more. Yeah, and see, that's the thing. I've heard numbers that high, but I've also heard more reasonable numbers as well. So, 500 pounds would be great. But there's a twist to that 500 pounds. I don't want to lose what I got sitting behind me. I love the big car. I like the fact that it's bigger. Number one. Number two, I really like the fact that I'm not competing with Mustang and Camaro. This thing, naturally aspirated, supercharged, it doesn't matter. It's not really in the running when you're talking Mustang or Camaro. These are significantly smaller cars, significantly lighter cars, and especially with the Mustang, powertrain has got a completely different mission statement on board. So, I like the idea that you can have a Mustang, you can have a Challenger, and have them both sitting in the garage, and you've got the best of both opposing bookmarks, or bookends rather. You're bookending a driving experience, and that's why I love the Mustang so much, is because they bookend a driving experience, that is more or less the opposite of what the Challenger is, with that Camaro being in that funky somewhere in the middle thing, and that to me is, I don't like the funky in the middle. I want the best of one end, or I want the best of the other. I want screaming high RPM, hauling ass, mile an hour power, or I want pin your head to the back of the seat, rearrange your kidney location torque, driving me out of the hole, and have that mid-track and three-quarter track rush, or that rush to that half track or three-quarter track. Those are the two things that I like the most, and I don't know. The Camaro just does not do that for me. And I like the fact that the Hellcat or the 392 or a hot rodded 5.7, I like the way that it does it. Again, it's a big car. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to get mired down in some pony car three-way when you don't have to, you don't have to play that game. Let Camaro keep trying to be more Mustang than Mustang. Here they come again. Let the Camaro be more Mustang than Mustang, or at least try to get that title, and leave the big muscle car hot rod thing to Mopar. Mopar Man saying, Sean, much worse. For sure. Steven saying, I think we'll get a CUDA on the new platform. No, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the new CUDA being based on the new platform, and that possibly being the new Halo car until the new Viper is released. But I don't know that, they keep toying with that. And, to be honest, guys, we're still early on in any leaks or anything like that. There's no leaks that are going to start taking place anytime real soon. You've got at least to 2022 before you need to start looking deeper and deeper into that. Mopar Man saying, uncork the 5.7. That engine has a lot more in it. Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, it's got a hell of a lot more in it. And one of the reasons why I'm such a big fan of that 5.7, there's just so much you can do with that thing and have a ball with it. Scat426 saying, what is the up B Mason? I like it. What is happening, Scat? Steenberg saying 5.7 needs a damn exhaust. Yes, it does. Quick break. What's up, brother, man? Both my boys went live tonight. Consider myself entertained. I like it, my brother. White Knuckle RT. Long tubes on the 5.7 with a tune works well. You better believe it works well. It works real well. Johnny's saying a 345 Hemi will love long tube headers. Stock exhaust is not that great. No, stock exhaust is horrible on those engines. Onyx Ram saying, trying to uncork my 5.7 in my Ram. Would a 392 intake or a ported 5.7 be better? 14 Ram NA. Port your 5.7, you'll be just fine. Believe me on that. Mopar Man says, agreed, 600 horsepower. I got one at 550. I tried to keep the cash down, but it didn't work very well. We're talking about the Pentastar hot rod builds. It was good power, but you have a heavy car with a 6 and a lot of aftermarket parts on an engine that was not really built to rip like that. Yeah. You got to remember that there's so much you got to deal with when you're dealing with that type of a just mass that you're trying to run. See, Mopar Man saying, don't be hard on yourself, Will, it's okay. What? Shawnee, oh, wait, did I miss somebody? Oh, we got somebody hanging out. Will Miller. Oh, isn't that adorable? Loser, you sound like a tool. Well, thank you very much. That's what your mom calls me. Well, your mom does call me kind of a tool. It's more like she calls me jackhammer. So, yeah, very nice on that deal. Loser, what have I lost? Tell me, please. My hair, for sure. Not due to the ilk of your life. Let's see. Symphonics, Camaro's trying to be a track car. Mustang's still trying to be best all-around GT car. Dodge is just staying old school. Man, I'll tell you this. You know, the Mustang to me is still... it's weapon of choice for everything that I don't do. I'm not big into autocross anymore. I don't do closed circuit anymore. Roll rate. Okay, I think we're back. The feed took a vacation. Nice. Get back to what Symphonic said. Saying Camaro's trying to be a track, Mustang's still trying to be best all-around GT car. You know, man, the only problem with the Camaro is that, I mean, look at what sales are doing to them right now. I mean, they're having a fit trying to cover up some ground right now. Ooh. Mopar Man, LMAO saying Sean agreed. Scat's got all the thumbs up. Crazy Josh, Mopar Man saying that's funny as hell. Jackhammer. Well, you know. What can I say? Will's mom pays the bills. Let's see. So yeah, it looks like we lost feed there for a minute. I don't know what the deal was with that. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties over here. Timeout. Let me try something different. Hold on. Oh, man. That's live TV for you, folks. What can I tell you? Well, guys, I'm going to bounce out of here. Looks like our feed has gone all in disarray here. So, at any rate, sorry about that. We'll try to get that fixed next time. But that is a wrap on this one. Y'all have a great one. Adios.